In today's video, I'm answering your mortgage and real estate related questions.
Definitive guide on how to manage your credit, product, penalty, price in that order. It's never been more important to get your mortgage right.
All right, so welcome back. Today, I'm answering your real estate and mortgage related questions in the community tab of my channel. I recently asked, do you have any mortgage or real estate related questions? I'm answering some of those today in this video, and I will answer more of those in the future. So if you have real estate or mortgage related questions, go ahead to the community tab of my YouTube page and click on that particular comment section, and you can go in and you can ask your questions, and I'll hopefully answer them on the channel. But today I've got 4 or 5 questions I want to go through, but before we get into them, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and please hit the like button so more people like you can see this video. And don't forget about our race to 25,000 subscribers, where when we hit 25,000 subscribers, we're going to give away $5,000 to one lucky winner. But in order to win, you have to be subscribed. So go ahead, click that subscribe button. It's free, it's easy, and it's definitely worth it. And by the way, if you're in the market for a mortgage or you're in the market to buy a house somewhere in the near future, we have 2 courses available for you. The Secrets to Getting the Lowest Interest Rate course and the Homebuyer Bootcamp. Links in the description below. Both of those courses come with a special bonus if you choose Mortgage 360 for your mortgage eventually, and that is $1,000 credit. So go ahead. If you're in the market, those are the 2 courses that will give you everything you need to know to get the lowest rate and to be the most informed buyer in the real estate process. So let's get into it. Let's discuss the questions that came up on the channel in the last week. Some really good ones here. I'll start first and foremost with Riz, who asked, how can we get a larger pre-approval amount on a mortgage? So how do you get a larger pre-approval amount? Well, first and foremost, if you've gone directly to your bank, there more than likely is something that can be done to get you a slightly higher pre-approval amount. Best way to do this is to go to a broker who has access to multiple different lenders, which means multiple different types of qualifying and ratios when it comes to qualifying. For the most part, if you're getting a mortgage through CMHC or Genworth, or Canada Guarantee, sorry, Genworth is now called Sagan, the debt servicing ratios are pretty much set in stone. But what isn't set in stone is how the lender chooses to look at your other debts. So things like your credit card loans and your unsecured lines of credits and your car loans and so on and so forth. So if you want to get a higher pre-approval amount, start by going to a broker because they'll be able to run the numbers probably a little bit more efficiently, knowing what is available over a vast number of lenders. And then from there, you're going to hit a max at some point. And once you hit that max, the only other ways to increase your pre-approval amount are to either have a higher down payment, which increases your overall purchase price, or to find a cosigner, or to pay off other debts. So those are basically the ways that you can do it. Or I guess the last and the most important one and the most likely one is to somehow increase your income, either get a raise or so on and so forth. So those are the ways that you can increase your pre-approval amount. Most of the time, it takes a little bit of work. Outside of those options, it isn't really something that's easy to do. Now, moving on to the next question, Gurkarat asks, is it a good idea to go for a fixed rate mortgage when the lender is offering mortgage portability options? So first and foremost, with respect to mortgage portability isn't necessarily an option that is something that is rare on mortgages. In fact, it is quite honestly available on almost all mortgages. It is more often something that's taken away when you get a discount mortgage. So almost every mortgage is portable. And one of the big things that we see with portability is banks will often say to a client, you don't have to worry about having a 5-year fixed mortgage because the penalty is never going to be an issue because you can always port the mortgage to another property. And of course, Mr. Borrower, you're always going to live somewhere, right? So you can just port the mortgage and so on and so forth. And people think, oh, well, it's portable, no big deal. I don't have to worry about the penalty. So I'll get my RBC or my TD or my Scotiabank or my CIBC or my BMO mortgage because penalty is not going to be an issue. Well, that's not the whole story, because even though a mortgage may be portable, you may have to add funds to it. And if you've got an insured mortgage, that may mean you have to have top-up funds in order to top up the premium, which may not make it worth it to port the mortgage. And therefore, you may incur a penalty anyways. And then the other big thing is if you're borrowing more funds and you have a massive payout penalty and your mortgage is portable, but you are going to port it and add new money to the mortgage, well, the lender pretty much has the ability at that point to dictate the rate that you pay on the new money. And therefore, because you don't have any options with respect to leaving, you've pretty much got to pay them what they are asking for with respect to interest rate, or you have to pay that big penalty. So, portability is not something I would consider necessarily as a feature or a reason for taking a mortgage. I would definitely make sure I don't consider a mortgage that isn't portable or has portability restrictions, which is rare. But portability isn't a reason to, choose a lender or another lender. They're pretty much all portable. The big thing is don't get caught in that trap of a lender saying, don't worry about penalty because the mortgage is portable, because it can become problematic down the road if you're adding new funds and if you are doing things to change the mortgage, or even in the event that you have a spousal breakup and you can't port the mortgage because you aren't taking both borrowers with you to the new property. So, portability wouldn't be something I would consider when looking at 5-year fixed versus 5-year variable. I would look at other things that come before that. You can look at the last video where we talked about product penalty price for more information on that. Is it still a good time to buy a house? Had a great guest that we interviewed yesterday, a realtor out of Surrey, and he was talking about needs versus wants. And this is probably one of the best analogies with respect to today's market is if you want to move, it's probably not a good time to move. If you need to move, it probably is a good time to move because you need to move. So with respect to, is now a good time to buy a house? The right time to buy a house is when you have the earliest opportunity so that you don't end up priced out of the market, and also when you absolutely need to move. Now, if you're worried about housing prices going down, keep in mind that even if housing prices were to crash 20, 30, 40% tomorrow, 25 years from now, that crash would be just a blip on the radar. So as long as you're buying a house that you can afford to own, that you can continue to make the payments on long term, and that isn't going to put you into massive debt where you don't have any cash available in case something happens, then now is probably just as good a time as any. And if you don't get into the market really at the earliest opportunity, and you look at the people in 2015 who went, oh, the market is totally overvalued, we're going to get a deal if we just wait. Well, guess what? Those people all got priced on the market, and who knows where housing prices go, especially considering a recent report that was published on BNN. I'll do a video on this next week where they talked about the fact that particularly Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario are all underserved with the number of properties per capita, which means we have major supply issues, which means if we have major supply issues in the long run, we could have continued higher demand and therefore higher prices. So, I wouldn't be putting off trying to get into the market because you're trying to time the market. Timing the market makes good people do bad things. Just get in when you need to and buy the house that is the best fit for you in the long term, and you should be fine. So moving on to Lucas. Lucas asked about the process of buying in another province and managing long distance real estate. Many real estate investment companies and realtors and property managers will tell you that this is not a big deal. My personal belief is unless you are a sophisticated real estate investor with lots of real estate investments that can basically support purchasing in other provinces, I wouldn't recommend a amateur real estate investor buying in other provinces or even necessarily in other cities for that matter, because when you aren't on the ground in the area, there's a bunch of things that can go wrong. First and foremost, you can't visit the property. You don't really know what's going on. You can't keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening with that property. The other thing is you don't know the area when you're purchasing the real estate investment. So in other words, like in Calgary, I know which areas of the city to stay away from. I know which areas of the city are good investments, and I know what type of people live where. I don't know that for other cities. I can ask around, I can get information, but there's a really good chance that if I were to purchase in, let's say, Ontario, that I would be making a horrible decision with respect to where I'm buying because I'm not boots on the ground. I don't understand the area. So I don't recommend buying in other provinces or other cities when you're investing in real estate. Invest in the areas where you know and make sure that you're making the right investment decisions based on the area that you know rather than trying to, invest in Alberta because it's cheaper. Investing in areas that you don't know is kind of like choosing a mortgage based on portability. It could put you in a position where you make the wrong decisions and as a result end up in a situation where you lose a bunch of money because you just simply didn't know what you were doing in that market. So investing in real estate is very much about knowing the market, understanding the market, right down to the local market you're investing in. That's why a lot of real estate investment educators tell you to drive the area, get to know it, become a specialist in the area. Well, you can't do that from the other side of the country. And last but not least, trivia tip, ask the question, can you offer mortgages in Ontario? Yes, I am personally, as Nolan Mathias, licensed with Dominion Lending Centers in Ontario. I can offer you mortgages in Ontario and I can broker a mortgage for you there. And if you want to apply, you just apply through the mortgage360.ca website, and then we make sure that you get to the right people with the right disclosure forms and everything else for an Ontario mortgage, and also make sure you get with the right lender for an Ontario mortgage as well. So those are your questions in a nutshell answered. If you enjoyed this video, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. Don't forget about that race to 25,000 subscribers, and we'll see you on the next video. Cheers.